There you
So we started to go into the Mr. Wayback Machine with Mr. Peabody, and I had asked Doreen a question, and I'm just going to do this live on the fly. We might stitch these together and even have this in there, but I was talking, and then Doreen started talking, and she kept talking, and the internet crashed. So she was drifting back to a time 40 years ago, and I was talking about something for this last year, and somewhere in there we just did a time warp. So we're back. This is 2023, October 12th. I have psychologist and podcast host Dr. Doreen Downing with me. So Doreen, what was we were going back to the impetus of really what drew you to psychology. You talked a little bit about your upbringing and what that interest was, and you left off talking about being curious about people as a puzzle. So let's pick up there, and we can kind of roll forward from that spot.
Yeah, yeah. That's what brings me to the work that I love so much, and I can do it every single day, and I do do it every single day. It is to not only in my coaching programs, but even on the podcast. Sean, I have to tell you that so many times I listen and I'll make a connection between somebody's past. Like recently, somebody grew up with a bunch of sisters, and she talked about that experience, how she really had a voice early on, and it was lots of fun. And, that she really felt like they supported each other. And then later on, she talked about her current business, which is about supporting women to have more boldness in their life, you might say, to get up. And I said, hmm, you started very early doing that business, didn't you, with a bunch of females? And she went, oh, yeah, I never made that connection. So what people eventually become, to me, feels like it can be very directly connected to what their early life was about.
And isn't that interesting? I think all of us have. I spent 10 weeks in coaching, and I came to the realization how our bodies have memories of
Yeah.
both trauma and good stuff. But a lot of times we're looking outside for answers. And what you just described that helps me is that oftentimes we are already doing patterns of things that we want in our lives or we have done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
had these patterns. We've just forgotten to look at those and nurture them and move forward with them. So what you just described is another is an aha moment for me that was an aha moment from you from a podcast speaker on your show. So it comes full circle. Um,
Yeah.
let's dive into that a little deeper because a few of the questions that I asked you to propose that we can talk about here. One was getting deeper into your truth, and let's talk about speaking up even though you might be scared, because it sounds like this person may have not really had a whole lot of confidence in what they were wanting to do, yet they were actually doing it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's well, so those two ideas, the speaking your truth even though you may be scared, and the second one about how to access, I think are both very, very important. And of course, they're related. The how to access, I think, at least in my how I approach people in this puzzling project that I do with my clients, is to break the life story down with early life, the early memories, whatever comes up. And then let's say into high school when you start to get more socially, engaged or not. And then usually it's college or post high school, and then into the work world. And I like to shake out as much of what I can in each one of those arenas.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's often a thread that goes through, kind of what we were just saying a second ago about, oh, yeah, you've always been somebody who loves to work with women because you're comfortable with women. So why not make that a business, huh? Um, so that the finding and access what is inner self, you might say, to me is similar to what is what is true, most true about ourselves.
Hmm.
And that takes, to me, a, a way to go back and I was going to say watch, because in a way we are observing ourself, our own life, and it's like our life is a movie and we're watching it. Can we do that without judging?
That's a great question.
And you in your life, looking back at the addiction, I'm sure you've looked back and embraced that fellow who was surviving and in the only way he knew how. And so I think that in the work that I do, a lot of people say, that was the past, I'm way beyond that. That doesn't matter. But I think that we've got a lot of gold in our life experience. We got to go searching for those nuggets. Well, here it goes again. I talk about puzzling. Now I'm mining for gold.
But when you're talking about shaking up those three, for lack,
Right.
three different time periods of life that are pivotal,
Mhm.
instrumental, there's lots of change that happens from
Mhm.
childhood to high school to college to later years in life. When you're shaking that up, so to speak, and for those who are listening, we're both kind of holding our hands up like we're shaking out the coming up on Halloween, shaking the good stuff out of the bottom of the candy bag from the trick or treaters. And what are those? Are those the nuggets that you look for, or do you look at what's remained after the fluff, so to speak, is
Great,
shaken?
great, great, great question. I look at it all and don't judge what's bad or what's even the trauma. I
Mm-hmm.
just, don't want to take up too much time telling all these stories though, because I know it's limited, but uh, something like, here's just one quick one. The woman who said, I'm afraid the audience is going to pounce on me. She's because most people start with public speaking anxiety
Sure.
when they work with me. And when we did some of that shaking out early childhood stuff, she talked and never connected the fact that she was walking through a ghetto. There were vicious dogs. And one day, one of those, I don't know if it was Doberman or, one of those more pit bully type dogs that could have been aggressive, got loose and pounced on her. She used the same word, pounced, and her psyche didn't connect it. And my observation and listening said, did you just notice the same word you used? That fright of, going into a very dangerous, what felt like a dangerous walk to school every day. You steeled yourself to do it anyway. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what she was doing with her speaking. She was actually a trainer and she just hated it, and I'm doing the fisting like we were just talking about, like, oh, I'm going to make myself do it. But when she discovered that, oh, gee, wow, it's really early. Now, what do we do when you start putting the puzzle together and realizing, I know now why. I have one of my answers about why I get so scared about standing up in front of a group speaking.
And isn't it interesting how once that epiphany happens in discovery over a session or two, or however many sessions, those connections, the patterns and the connections that we equate with fear, fearful events, traumatic events, happy events, how those patterns tend to repeat themselves. And oftentimes they may lie dormant, but it's situations like public speaking, which is up there as one of the biggest things people are afraid of next to going to the dentist or dying, believe it or not. It's placed higher, as you know.
Mhm.
That apprehension and the anxiety around that brings forth other things. And once you discover that connection of what might be triggering that or the source of it, does it make it easier for the client or the patient to understand it and kind of reframe and feel more comfortable that they know where that comes from, and it allows them to move forward?
Yes, the fact that the biggest, I don't know, conflict, the struggle is, I don't know why I
Yeah.
get so nervous. I don't know why. I don't know why. And I always help people find out the why. So we've got that, it's like, okay, we've got the why, or we've got part of the why, and we could continue gathering other whys and how that was reinforced, or how you left the little girl who was quite maybe adventurous, freely running down a street, and she couldn't do that anymore. What happened to her? So then we go even a little bit deeper to the spirit that was alive, and what most of us arrive in this world with anyway, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
kind of this eager, full of, well, the soul, the spirit, the hello.
The innocence, the
Yes,
internal innocence that we're born with, that is in that
yes.
state of peace and happiness, is what I recently listened to. And this ties to one of
Uh-huh.
the questions you have, and with the question we were just talking about, is getting back to that essence. So um not asking for a free psychotherapy session here, but what are some of the tools that people might, and frame this in a way that might be helpful to either attract people who want to go deeper with you, or to at least have some better understanding and curiosity, or explore options and solutions for themselves. But what what are some of the guiding questions that you would want to ask a new potential client to get down to this level of essence, to remove, to not negate or deny some of the things that were blocks, but to acknowledge them, to accept them as part of that, but to take a step over, through, around, under, whatever you want, to get to that core that is in each and every one of us, which you and I have talked about before, which is that spiritual, soulful essence of our being.
Yes.
It is absent of fear. It is absent of worry. It is absent
Yeah.
of doubt. It's the purest
Oh,
uh, innocence and sense of curiosity and wonder about the world that we were born with. So how do you get people to that, to build them back up? Because your podcast and what you do for the work in coaching is all about helping people get to that place of finding their voice to
yeah.
change their life. So let's talk about that.
Well, that inner journey, first of all, somebody has to believe that there's some value in that. And uh, I'm not somebody who works with somebody who wants to just be a public speaker and give good speeches. Although I do work with those who feel like something's holding them back, and that is their goal, to be somebody who's way more visible on a public stage. But they realize that it's something inside that's holding them back, and they haven't really accessed it yet. So the first thing is to have an approach, you might call it a mindset of curiosity and acceptance, and then being willing to find where the pain is,
Mm-hmm.
and to go, be willing. And this is what is so important. And I take this from Billy Atwell: face, embrace, replace. So the willingness to face everything and not say, oh, that didn't matter. Just, we're going to put everything out. And then the second thing is the willingness to embrace the little one who had to go through the street every single day. And then the going deeper into, well, what's the natural being that's way down inside? How do we have to go through something, but the
Mm-hmm.
way we go through it is, I'll just use the word love, right? Loving, as what is it, Byron Katie says, loving what is, that the moving through our life, to because that's where the journey will take us. And I know people don't believe it. I've just started working with somebody a couple of days ago who says, I can't imagine it. I don't believe it. I've tried everything. And I said, well, then why are you reaching out to me?
Yeah, right.
Am I just going to be another one of the I've tried everything's? And then what I saw was how self-critical she was. So that's what we had to work on first. She could not approach her inner self with that amount of criticism. Uh-uh. I'm not going to take you down if you're going to take that critic with you. No, she doesn't.
And some of that, it's become that in and of itself has become a coping mechanism. It's a safety and a security measure,
Yes.
as you know,
Yes. Yeah.
from limited psychology courses I've taken. That's common basic psychology 101 is our defense mechanisms. So when those come up, and they come up for all of us, how do you help navigate somebody to trust you? And I'm going deeper than this than probably I should, Doreen, but
Uh-huh.
fear is a real thing for most people to the degree that we believe the fear. And for the most part, my feeling on fear is it's false evidence appearing real. And for
Yeah,
most,
but
not.
tell that to the amygdala.
It doesn't know. The
I
amygdala
know.
has this mind of its own. So
Yes.
understanding the
Yes.
neuroscience behind it with the emotional center of our brain,
Yes.
how do you navigate someone who doesn't have that same psychological understanding that you
Well,
do?
that's it was just what I did a couple of days ago. What I usually do in the beginning is create enough of a possibility that is it possible or not,
Okay.
and so that the fact that she's reached out to me after trying everything, hypnosis and beta blockers and everything's even a anxiety course, and uh so I tap into the belief, and it's relational. There's something about working with me where I make it safe for them to take that inner journey, and I begin to just say, like, what is a little once I mean, when I took her into a little bit of that deeper dive, I said, "Do you see her? Do you see?" And she goes, "Yes." And then she started crying because she knows inside intuitively that there's a part of herself that she abandoned. She let go and held back so that she could move out into the world. And now it's not working. The beta blockers are really not working anymore, is what she's talking about. And then the other thing you said is about how do you help somebody. Well, first of all, it's embracing it, but with is there a way we could reframe? And I know that's kind of more of a cognitive thing, but so an example is a fellow who asked a question in when he was 12 years old in class, and it had to do with sex, and it was one of those education classes, I guess, and everybody laughed at him, and he became, he was teased a lot, and that was one of his memories that was really deep for him, and he took himself back, because that's what we do. We're 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 beautiful human beings, and how to tap into the kindness and the compassion we take with ourselves as we do that kind of inner journey. And he goes, "Oh, I was the only one who had enough courage to ask a question like that. It was on the minds of everybody, but nobody had the courage. I did." So that kind of breakthrough, isn't that? I mean, I feel it in my skin right now. The breakthrough of, look at me, I have courage. And then that's what infused his adult self now with a new kind of story, you might say, about that moment that was traumatic. And the same with the woman who had the dog pounce on her. It was like, boy, did I have a lot of bravery going through that ghetto every single day. Brave. I am brave. Do you see how that begins to shift their whole sense of what the narrative? And then of course I go even deeper to, well, you know who was there in the first place before she got you know
Yeah. And well,
assaulted?
and that the reframing and the mind is incredible. The mind is plastic, elastic. The
Yes.
neuroplasticity is a real thing. All these thousands and millions and trillions of synapses in our brain can be realigned. So reframe and reprogram is not just mumbo jumbo and woo woo stuff. There's science behind it. but it also takes a willingness, as you mentioned at the front part of the show, a willingness to take a look within, to face some of those things that have been uncomfortable, and a willingness to want to change, to a desire to get to this place where I'm not comfortable with what has supposedly been working for so long. Something needs to change. I don't know why I'm this way. I want to understand why, but I do know that I don't want to feel this way any longer. And it's from my own experience,
Yeah.
that's an easy way for me to get my head around that was when I was, when I finally made the realization that in fact I am an alcoholic. Now I was fortunate enough to discover that at 22 years old, 37 years ago, but it was a hard thing. I kept trying to find all these other things that was wrong with me. And just a brief side story from my experience was I found myself after being up all night long doing all kinds of drugs, psychedelics, everything you could imagine, and drinking, laying on my back, literally, quite literally thinking that I was going insane. And I called in my memoir, Beyond Recovery, I called this section of the book Voices. And in that moment, it's clear as day. And this ties to what you were talking about, going back, just articulating it right now brings me right back into that 7x7 low ceiling room, feeling despondent and distraught, and literally thinking I'm going insane because all these voices in my head are just saying, you need to stop, you need to stop. And the voices that were coming to me were not, I had three thoughts. One was, I'm going insane, or I'm going to die, because I literally had to consciously think about every breath I was taking because I felt like my heart was going to burst out of my chest, or that I might have a problem. And what I did in that moment was just breathe slowly. And then all of a sudden, I started hearing all of these voices of every single person I knew in my life. And they all were saying exactly the same thing, Doreen. We love you. Please get help.
Oh,
You're not crazy.
oh,
Please get help.
yeah.
And that was the crux of that realization for me. I got there accidentally. I got there intentionally from abusing my body as a young adult. But that was the beginning of this shift that happened to me to want to go explore real solutions. And I'm sharing that with you because what you're telling me with these stories, with people trying to find their own voice and literally changing their life,
Yes.
that is a voice. Those were voices in my head. They were voices of my own deepest being that were telling me I was insane, and I believed them for a bit. But other voices came into my head that said, that other voice isn't true.
Yeah.
What's true is what you already talked about, love. And
Yeah.
we love you, and we don't want to see you die. Here's how you can get help.
Ooh, yes.
And that's what this is all about. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because you fear is paralyzing,
Yes.
and we're not living to our true essence when we're living in fear, right?
Right. Yes. Uh-huh.
So the work you do to not only change your voice to help people become better public speakers, but let's talk a little bit about some of the change and the impact that your work has had from what you hear from your clients when they come back to you. What
Well, I hear,
transformation happened?
guess what? Last year, when I was at the conference and giving the keynote, I happened to be in an event, a summit. I was again a speaker, but it was online 2 weeks ago. There was somebody from that conference who was showing up. And she said, Doreen, I got your book that day. It changed my life. And now I'm finishing my story. I'm showing up and I'm speaking out about my story. So, this idea about how we affect people, like what you just said a second ago, was how that voice of something reached you, people reached you. So my voice reached somebody. I mean, hello, I used to be afraid. a stage? Oh my gosh, a microphone? Oh my gosh. My own inner journey proves that, change. I mean, I don't have to say that. It's really, I am so believing in change, and I know you do too. So to hear from somebody that I touched a year ago, I had no idea, and she just gave me a wonderful honor and appreciation for the power of her now finding her voice, which means her story could reach so many more people. Right?
Exactly. It's the ripple
Yes.
effect. But see, the work we do when we're working with other people, either one-on-one or in group settings, we don't always know the impact that it has, but we
Right.
do it anyway.
Well, that's what you're doing with the podcast.
Yeah,
Your podcast is powerful because it's you, and then you're having conversations that bring out in us, your guests, something that will hopefully, and I believe it's more than, like they say, if only one person. I believe I want to reach more than just one person.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase, but
But you know what? Like even that, the impact of that one person to
that's
close
true.
the loop to come back. Look at
Yeah,
the joy. You're lit.
yeah,
She can't see her on screen, but she's got a smile from ear to ear because when we're pouring our hearts into the work
yes,
to help other people,
yes,
it's nice to feel and hear these incidents of the impact that the work we do has on other people's lives. And it's not necessary, but when we hear it, it gives us the same spark that we try and give to the people we work with in terms of encouragement and inspiration and guidance to help people change their voice and change their life. In my case, it's to, my purpose statement is to love and inspire people to believe in themselves. It's that simple.
uh-huh.
To love and inspire people. Love needs to be a
Yeah.
part of my purpose because without love, what the hell else is there?
Yeah, no wonder we are soulmates. This really resonates with me, what you just said about the purpose, love, and inspire. Yeah.
So, Doreen, we're coming up to the top of the hour here.
Yes.
How
Yes.
can people find you? Where's the best way to remind people of the title of your podcast and where they can find it? And then do you have anything else that you're working on or coming up with that you want to free plug inside to do?
Well, let's see. My website is easy, DoreenDowning.com. And that's Doreen, Doreen, Downing.com. So that's one easy way because I have the podcast listed there. I have the free 15-minute consultation I give with people to check me out. I have a quiz on the website, a Find Your Voice quiz. So I think that's the easiest way.
Huh.
And if somebody was really like, they've listened to this and they just, I got to speak to Doreen, then email me, Doreen@DoreenDowning.com, Doreen@DoreenDowning.com. And then you asked about the podcast is Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Find Your Voice, Change Your Life on any podcast platform. It's out there.
And it's not just for people that want to improve their public speaking. It's this finding your voice is much deeper than just for public speakers, correct?
Right. That's a whole nother episode about the people that have shown up all the way from people who've been trapped in a corporation, people who've been trapped in a marriage, people who've been trapped in an early family trauma, so
Mm-hmm.
finding your voice is all the whole range of life. And I say life is your stage.
I love it. And we will have you back so we can have that conversation at another time. But I want to thank you for your time. Thank
Yes.
you all for listening. This has been Dr. Doreen Downing with Find Your Voice, Change Your Life, host of the podcast and psychologist. My name is Sean Langwell. I am the host of this podcast called Dare to Be You, Dare to Be Great. It will be available on wherever you can find your podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, share it with somebody else, like it, talk about it, listen to it over and over again. This is a free podcast as of right now, and there's not a paywall here. So share away because the more that we take something that we enjoy and share it and give it away, it grows and multiplies exponentially in terms of the folks that we don't even know who it will reach. So thank you again, Dr. Doreen. It's
Yes.
been a delight. I will send you an invitation to the conference so you can come as a guest if you wish. And if we have a speaker slot available, I'll reach out to you for that. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, my name is Sean, and this has been Dare to Be Great, Dare to Be You.